In the high-stakes game of geopolitical chess, one nation stands as an indomitable force, casting its shadow over its neighbor like a colossus of old. With tensions simmering and the world holding its breath, the question looms large: why Russia's military can count on dominance over Ukraine? Join us as we delve into the intrigue, the strategy, and the raw power that shaped this modern-day saga of might and mastery. From historical echoes to cutting-edge technology, prepare to uncover the secrets behind Russia's iron grip and Ukraine's struggle for sovereignty. It's a tale of strength, cunning, and the delicate balance of power in the heart of Eastern Europe. Welcome to the front line of geopolitical maneuvering, where every move counts and the stakes couldn't be higher. Before moving forward, let's take a moment to delve into the remarkable history of the region. The relationship between Russia and Ukraine is steeped in centuries of complex history, marked by conquests, alliances, and territorial disputes. As the largest country in Europe, Ukraine has often found itself caught in the crosshairs of competing empires, with its fate intertwined with that of its powerful neighbor to the east. One pivotal moment in this history occurred in 1654, when the Treaty of Pereyaslav established a loose union between Ukraine and Russia, laying the groundwork for centuries of cultural, economic, and political ties. However, this relationship was often fraught with tensions, as Ukraine sought to maintain its distinct identity while navigating the influence of Russian rulers. In the 20th century, Ukraine endured the turmoil of two world wars and the upheaval of the Soviet era. Following the Russian Revolution of 1917, Ukraine briefly declared independence, only to be absorbed into the Soviet Union in 1922. Under Soviet rule, Ukraine experienced both periods of repression and relative autonomy, with its fate largely dictated by Moscow. The dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 marked a new chapter for Ukraine as it emerged as an independent nation. However, the legacy of Soviet rule lingered, and Ukraine soon found itself grappling with political instability, economic challenges, and tensions with Russia over its territorial integrity. One of the most significant flashpoints in recent history occurred in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, a strategic peninsula in southern Ukraine, following the ousting of Ukraine's pro-Russian president. This move sparked international condemnation and ignited a conflict in eastern Ukraine, where pro-Russian separatists, allegedly supported by Moscow, sought to break away from the Ukrainian government. Since then, Ukraine has been locked in a bitter struggle to assert its sovereignty and territorial integrity, while Russia has flexed its military muscle to maintain influence in the region. The conflict has claimed thousands of lives, displaced millions of people, and plunged Ukraine into a state of uncertainty and upheaval. Against this backdrop, the question of why Russia's military can count on dominance over Ukraine takes on added significance as the geopolitical chessboard continues to shift and evolve in the heart of Eastern Europe. The conflict in Ukraine has persisted for 2 years following Russia's invasion, with recent developments indicating a shift in momentum favoring Moscow's forces. One significant development is the withdrawal of Ukrainian forces from the eastern town of Avdiivka, marking Russia's most notable victory since the fall of Bakhmut in May the previous year. This withdrawal represents a strategic setback for Ukraine, as Avdiivka held strategic importance in the region. Its loss underscores the challenges faced by Ukrainian forces in maintaining control over key territories in the face of relentless Russian aggression. Additionally, Russia has intensified its attacks around villages in the southern Zaporizhzhia region, where Ukraine had made some gains during its 2023 counteroffensive. This escalation in hostilities reflects Moscow's determination to regain lost ground and consolidate its control over contested areas. Meanwhile, Ukraine has continued its efforts to challenge Russia's military presence, particularly in the Black Sea. Recent reports suggest Ukrainian attacks on the Russian fleet, with claims of sinking the amphibious ship, the Caesar Kunikov, off the coast of Russian-occupied Crimea. These developments highlight the ongoing volatility and fluidity of the situation in Ukraine, with both sides engaged in a protracted conflict marked by shifting territorial gains and losses. The withdrawal from Avdiivka and Russia's renewed offensive in the Zaporizhzhia region demonstrate the challenges faced by Ukraine in confronting Russia's military might. As the conflict enters its third year, the need for a diplomatic resolution remains paramount. The escalation of violence and the humanitarian toll on civilians underscore the urgency of international efforts to broker a ceasefire and facilitate meaningful dialogue between the warring parties. Without a concerted diplomatic push towards de-escalation and conflict resolution, the cycle of violence and instability in Ukraine is likely to persist, with devastating consequences for the country and the broader region. Ukraine has withdrawn its troops from Avdiivka, a key eastern town besieged by Russian forces for months, and the nearby coke factory, which allowed Kiev to resupply its forces there. Before Russia moved in on February 24th, military watchers expected the much larger Russian Air Force to overwhelm Ukraine and quickly grab air superiority, defined by NATO as being able to conduct operations without prohibitive interference from the opposing force. Instead, an intelligence update from the UK early Wednesday said Ukrainian air defenses appear to have enjoyed considerable success against Russia's modern combat aircraft, probably preventing them achieving any degree of control of the air. The surprising development comes amid repeated and passionate calls from Ukraine for a no-fly zone, as well as requests for more fighter jets. Here's a look at some key things to know about the skies over Ukraine. Since last October, Moscow has launched wave after wave of attacks towards the town, which would have been a possible gateway for Ukraine to reach the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk. Avdiivka has been a battlefield town since 2014, when Russian-backed fighters seized large swaths of the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Almost all of Avdiivka's pre-war population of more than 30,000 people have left, and the town itself is almost completely destroyed. Its fall marks the biggest change on the more than 1,000 kilometer-long, 620-mile front line since Russian troops seized the nearby town of Bakhmut in May 2023. Bakhmut remains a key flashpoint along the front line, along with the areas around Robotyne and Krinky further south. U.S. intelligence had predicted a blistering assault by Moscow that would quickly mobilize the vast Russian air power that its military assembled in order to dominate Ukraine's skies. Ukraine is vastly outnumbered by Russia's military. According to Flight Global's World Air Forces Directory 2022, Russia had slightly over 1,500 combat aircraft before the war began. It moved about 300 aircraft into easy range of the conflict zone, according to Justin Bronk, a research fellow for air power and technology at the Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, a defense and security think tank based in London. Ukraine, meanwhile, has just under 100 combat aircraft. Russia's President Vladimir Putin has hailed it as an important victory, although the UK Ministry of Defense, MOD, said it was likely that Russian forces lack the combat effectiveness to immediately exploit the capture of Avdiivka. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the decision to withdraw was taken to save soldiers' lives and blamed faltering Western weapon supplies. Ukraine is critically dependent on weapon supplies from the US and other Western allies to keep fighting Russia, a much bigger military force with an abundance of artillery ammunition. Bakhmut has endured some of the heaviest fighting of the war, and although Ukraine gained some ground in the surrounding areas over the summer, recent assessments by US-based analysts at the Institute for the Study of War, IASW, suggest Russian forces have made advances around the city. Russia has also made slow progress further south near the villages of Robotyne and Verbov in Zaporizhia, an area where Ukraine had seen some success during its counteroffensive in 2023. When Ukraine retook Robotyne in August, it was hoped that its forces would be able to cut the land corridor to Crimea, making Moscow's supply lines more complicated. Ukraine first announced it had made a breakthrough in Krinky in mid-November. The river had separated Ukrainian and Russian forces since Moscow's troops withdrew from Kherson a year ago. It was hoped Ukraine might be able to use it as a base to begin transferring armored vehicles and air defense systems across the river, putting it a step closer to breaking through to Crimea, the peninsula illegally annexed by Russia in 2014. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu claimed on Tuesday that Russian forces had retaken Krinky, but the ISW said open-source visual evidence and Ukrainian and Russian reporting suggested that Ukrainian forces still had a limited foothold in the area. By any estimation, the battle for Ukraine was never going to be a fair fight. The invading Russian Federation commands the world's second most powerful military, behind only the United States, having spent an estimated $61.7 billion US on defense in 2020. According to figures compiled by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Ukraine, on the other hand, spent a mere tenth of that, allocating just $5.9 billion US to its defense budget. This glaring disparity in military spending is evident in almost every possible comparison between the two nations. In terms of active military personnel, Russia boasts almost 900,000 troops at its disposal for its war of aggression, while Ukraine's standing military numbers are around 200,000. This vast difference in manpower gives Russia a significant advantage in terms of sheer numbers on the battlefield. Moreover, Russia's superiority extends to its air force capabilities, with a formidable fleet of 1,328 attacking aircraft compared to Ukraine's meager 146. Similarly, in terms of helicopters, Russia outnumbers Ukraine with 478 helicopters compared to Ukraine's 42. On the ground, Russian tanks, part of an armored corps totaling 31,000 vehicles, are advancing towards the capital, Kyiv. In stark contrast, Ukraine's armored fleet consists of only 5,000 vehicles, leaving them at a severe disadvantage against the Russian onslaught. The naval imbalance is equally pronounced, with the Russian Navy boasting 605 vessels, including 70 submarines, that can be deployed in the Black Sea off the Ukrainian coast. Meanwhile, Ukraine's fleet comprises a mere 38 ships, with no submarines to counter the Russian naval presence. These glaring disparities in military capabilities underscore the overwhelming advantage held by the Russian Federation in its invasion of Ukraine. With superior numbers, firepower, and resources at its disposal, Russia's military dominance poses a formidable challenge for Ukraine's defense forces as they strive to repel the aggression and protect their sovereignty. The Russian army is powerful, there's no doubt about it, far more powerful than that of Ukraine, said retired Lieutenant General Andrew Leslie, former Chief of Land Staff for the Canadian Armed Forces. The Russians enjoy a vast technological advantage in terms of quality, in terms of training time, which gives you experience on the various machines of war, and in terms of numbers. As we know, Russia and Ukraine are the two largest countries in Europe. The neighbors were part of the 15 Soviet republics that made up the USSR. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, Ukraine became an independent country and distanced itself from Russia. In March 2014, following months of anti-government protests in Ukraine that saw a Kremlin-friendly leader removed from power, Russia invaded and annexed the Crimean Peninsula. A month later, pro-Russian separatists began capturing territory from the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine. The ongoing fighting there has killed more than 14,000 people, according to Kyiv, and displaced millions. Over the past months, Russia has built up its military along the border with Ukraine, where an estimated 100,000 troops were concentrated earlier this year. Russia's defense ministry had said its forces were pulling back after military exercises earlier this month with Belarus. However, on February 24th, Moscow launched a full-scale military invasion into Ukraine. In 2020, Russia spent $61.7 billion on its military, which accounted for 11.4% of government spending. In comparison, Ukraine spent $5.9 billion on its military, or 8.8% of government spending, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI. A number of countries have sent military equipment to Ukraine, including Javelin anti-tank missiles from Estonia and Stinger anti-aircraft missiles from Latvia and Lithuania. Kyiv is also using Turkish-made Bayraktar drones for reconnaissance. Ukraine also received shipments of weapons from the U.S. as part of a $200 million, 147.5 million pounds, defensive package approved by President Joe Biden in December. Russia boasts one of the most powerful militaries globally, ranking among the top 5 nations in terms of military expenditure. In 2020, Russia allocated a substantial $61.7 billion, constituting 11.4% of government spending, to its military. The annexation of the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine in March 2014 demonstrated Russia's willingness to wield its military might to assert territorial claims. Moreover, pro-Russian separatists have been capturing territory in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions of eastern Ukraine since 2014, leading to ongoing conflict that has resulted in the loss of over 14,000 lives and the displacement of millions. Despite facing international sanctions, Russia's military capacity remains formidable, posing a significant challenge to regional stability. On the other hand, Ukraine, once part of the Soviet Union, declared independence in 1991. In response to Russian aggression, Ukraine has allocated $5.9 billion, equivalent to 8.8% of government spending, to its military. Additionally, several countries, including Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, have provided military aid to Ukraine in its efforts to defend its sovereignty. Recently, Ukrainian forces withdrew from the town of Avdiivka, marking a significant development in the ongoing conflict. However, tensions remain high, with NATO refraining from deploying troops to Ukraine, but closely monitoring the situation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged resilience among troops as Russian forces continue to advance. The current situation suggests that Russian forces are likely to peak in late 2024, with anticipated material challenges in 2025. This ongoing conflict underscores the complex geopolitical dynamics at play and the need for continued vigilance and international attention to address the evolving situation. Russia still maintains the strategic objective of bringing about the subjugation of Ukraine. It now believes that it is winning. Surrender terms currently being proposed by Russian intermediaries include Ukraine ceding the territory already under Russian control, along with Kharkiv, and in some versions Odessa, agreeing not to join NATO and maintaining a head of state approved by Russia. The only significant concession Russia proposes is that what is left of Ukraine can join the EU. The process by which Russia aims to bring about this outcome is in 3 stages. The first requires the continuation of pressure along the length of the Ukrainian front to drain the armed forces of Ukraine's AFU, munitions, and reserves of personnel. Parallel to this effort, the Russian special services are tasked with breaking the resolve of Ukraine's international partners to continue to provide military aid. Once military aid has been significantly limited such that Ukrainian munition stocks become depleted, Russia intends to initiate further offensive operations to make significant, if slow, gains on the battlefield. These gains are then intended to be used as leverage against Kiev to force capitulation on Russian terms. The planning horizon for the implementation of these objectives, which is providing the baseline for Russian force generation and industrial outputs, is that victory should be achieved by 2026. It is vital to appreciate that Russian goals may expand with success, and given that the Kremlin has violated almost all significant agreements both with Ukraine and NATO, there is no assurance that even if Russia got what it wanted out of negotiations, it would not subsequently endeavor to physically occupy the rest of Ukraine or be emboldened to use force elsewhere. While Russian force quality is unlikely to increase so long as the Ukrainians can maintain a significant level of attrition across the force, the Russians will be able to maintain a steady tempo of attacks throughout 2024. Additionally, Russia's military capabilities are bolstered by its significant industrial mobilization efforts, which have seen increased shifts in expanded production lines in existing facilities. This has resulted in notable upticks in the production output of tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and missiles. For example, the production of Iskander 9M723 ballistic missiles saw a substantial increase from 6 per month at the beginning of 2023 to nearly 200 missiles stockpiled by the beginning of 2024. However, these achievements are tempered by limitations in the longevity and reliability of Russia's industrial output. While the country can maintain a consistent level of production output in the short term, a significant portion of its armored vehicles are refurbished from existing war stocks. As a result, as these stocks diminish, the need for deeper refurbishment will increase, potentially impacting future production capacity. Moreover, ammunition manufacture poses a critical challenge for Russia's military ambitions. The Ministry of Defense has projected a substantial requirement for artillery shells in 2024, but production estimates fall short of these demands. Despite efforts to increase production, particularly of 152 mm artillery shells, the limitations in manufacturing capacity may hinder Russia's ability to sustain territorial gains in the long term. Unless significant investments are made in new production facilities and raw material extraction, the country may face challenges in maintaining its military dominance beyond the immediate future. If Russia can maintain its military dominance over Ukraine, it would likely have significant implications for the region and beyond. Domination over Ukraine would consolidate Russia's control over strategic territories and resources, potentially reshaping geopolitical dynamics in Eastern Europe. However, such dominance is not without its challenges and limitations. Russia's military superiority may face resistance from Ukrainian forces and international opposition, leading to prolonged conflict and instability. Moreover, sustaining military dominance requires significant resources and may strain Russia's economy and diplomatic relations. In conclusion, while Russia's military capabilities may provide it with a tactical advantage in the short term, achieving and maintaining dominance over Ukraine is a complex and multifaceted endeavor. It remains to be seen how geopolitical factors, economic constraints, and international pressures will shape the outcome of this ongoing conflict.